Have you ever wondered what life would be like if the inventions you knew now were never created? For example, what if Alfred Nobel never created dynamite? All those action-packed scenes where the cool guy walks away from that explosion would never have happened. How about if Milton S. Hershey never invented the Hershey's Company? All those Valentines without where you share your Hershey kisses with with your Valentine would never be possible. How about Lewis Carrier, who invented air conditioning? Classes will be really too hot for comfort, like during summer here. And those were actually only a few of the many inventions that received fame and publicity for changing the way we live our world today, whereas the many few that didn't were long forgotten, for they were ahead of their time. So today I would like to represent to you the top 4 most fascinating inventions that would have changed the world. And my first topic would be, what I would like to discuss to you guys is flexible glass. It came from, the first description about it was an encyclopedia from a Roman scholar, Petronius, in 63 AD. The story was, this is Phiale, which is somewhat what he gave to the Roman Emperor. It was the story goes that a glassmaker went to Tiberius, who was a Roman emperor of that time. He actually gave him his glass and he dropped it. Instead of shattering, it just dented the end of it, and the glassmaker actually pushed the dent back in. And Tiberius, afraid that this new material would give away his value of copper, gold, and silver, had him beheaded, and he destroyed his workshop, got rid of all the evidence that this actual material existed, and it was long forgotten. No one ever knew about it until they found the encyclopedia of Petronius. And now, last year in the summer of 2012, a company called Corning designed willow glass, which they actually use this for solar panels. It's flexible glass. A website that I found that called The Verge, describes how in 2016 you're gonna start seeing willow glass being used in cell phones. But the only reason it's not used right now is because there's no batteries for like cell phones that are flexible. You're gonna start seeing flexible phones, which is enough for you guys. It's gonna be pretty cool. And now the second invention I would like to talk about was the electric vehicle. Oh yeah, this is, sorry about that, that's the willow glass, flexible glass right there. Now the electrical vehicle, it was first invented by Scottish inventor Robert Anderson in the time of 1832 and 1839, no one knows when for sure. It didn't receive much hype because you couldn't actually charge the vehicle because there wasn't actually lead fuel batteries like we have in cars. It wasn't invented yet at that time. And then it was actually brought up back before World War II, but because companies and manufacturing companies had to stop production to make weapons and all that, so it was forgotten once again. Not until I found this from Toyota's website, not until up to 1997 the Toyota Prius came about, which spiked the development of electrical cars, and it pretty much paved the way for like vehicles like Tesla and the new Tesla model cars, Model S. And now to my next point, which this one is one of my favorite inventions, the Tesla coil. It was invented by Nikola Tesla, the great mad scientist, if you guys didn't know. It's kind of the reason why I'm using this projection, using AC current. He pretty much paved the way for electricity. kind of one of the reasons why you guys got to school today, because of those alternators, which he invented, which is in your car. And this, in hard terms, it was basically, the Tesla coil was a high frequency air core transformer able to convert relatively low current at high frequencies and transmit electrical power without wires. So it was basically Wi-Fi electricity using this Tesla coil. And he actually made a large tower model of it. It was 187 feet tall, and he had pipes 300 feet below ground. And it was actually a rate, he could use it 3 ways. And well, those 5 ways, but those are theoretic, I can't say it. Theories that he used it for. It was a radio tower. It was an electrical tower, free electricity. And one of it was a death ray. People thought it was a death ray. Like it was reported that he could actually kill use it as a weapon. And then the only reason that it didn't go through was because J.B. Morgan, the oil company, the guy, he actually had a feud with them with inventions, and he stopped funding this project, so it never went through. And now the third topic, or the fourth, the last one, was the invention of the Vest Pocket telephone. And this is actually a picture from the article from the Los Angeles Herald. He was the person that invented the first mobile telephone. It only actually received calls, but it never actually made them. He was really ahead of his time. The first actual phone call made was made in 1973 by Motorola phone company. And the funny thing about this guy is that the interviewer tried to get another interview from him, but he actually vanished with all his material. He was never before seen again after this post on the newspaper was made. And today I've spoken about amazing inventions that would have changed the world. If you're ever thinking about inventing something, never be afraid to look back in history, for something might have already been invented beforehand. If you're looking for help, you can probably find it out there.
Claire? Wasn't she here? Oh. Okay. Fair enough. Well, I'll tell you what, this guy dropped. Nicholas Bradley, how about you offering a few comments?
I felt that it was pretty good. I feel like your transitions could have been a little better. Your information, you had good information. You cited your information. I feel like you could have stared at the audience a little more instead of staring at the window or the wall. You moved around a lot, but overall I felt like it was a good speech. Informative.
Well, that works, because it was supposed to be an informative speech. That helps. All right, Jesus, I think you had some things that worked really nicely, and then some things that are on the brink of working really nicely. So there's a lot of good in the presentation, and then there are a couple of things that you need to think about for next time. I like the humorous visualization that you have at the beginning. I thought that you have a pretty good statement of your claim. It's a very of your purpose. It's a very general purpose, but it's an interesting idea to talk about. But it's tough that you're having to read it and go through it, and you're just not talking to us. You know, if you were looking at us and saying, imagine what Valentine's Day would be like without Hershey's Kisses, or wouldn't it just be depressing if you had to reach in your pocket, you could only answer the phone, you could never call on it, you know, those kinds of things. And, you know, you're talking to the audience when you're talking about these things instead of just reading it off the page, which I think it doesn't kill it entirely, but it sure brings down the level of involvement that we're going to have. And you've got interesting topics. The flexible glass thing, for instance, I'm immediately thinking, okay, well, how's this different than plastic? And, you know, oh, wait, how could you use this? And what would all the things be? And then you mentioned, you know, the futuristic use of it, and you're talking about it's coming in the future. You know, we'll get these cell phones that'll have the flexible glass built in. Does that mean that those new watch phones will be passe in a year because the next ones will all actually curve all the way around our wrist? We won't just be wearing a big block on our wrist. It'll actually be, you know, a bracelet that curves around, something like that. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm wondering. And you've got a couple of ideas there that, you know, there just needs to be a little bit more follow through on. A little practice too. Tiberius is the emperor's name. And, yeah, Tiberius. And the way you said it just doesn't sound quite right.
Tiberius? I don't know.
When you listen back, you'll hear it's just awkward, and you know it's just one of those things you look at and you go, I don't know how to say that, but that's one of those things that you could check on, and it wouldn't have been that hard. Somebody I'm sure could have given you some advice, or you could have gone online and found a pronunciation. So that's just a little thing. I thought you were doing a good job citing some of the materials early on, but it's not always as complete as it could be. The story, for instance, about Alden at the end makes it sound like it's a separate story from the Motorola story. It's not clear to me if Alden worked for Motorola and they're the first ones that came up the phone and he's the guy who did it for them, or if he did it way before them and they're the first ones that actually made this kind of thing. I couldn't tell from the way you told the story, and I don't know if, you know, Motorola made him disappear, or if he, you know, he just had this idea, it was published someplace, and then it never went back again. Those kinds of things, you know, it feels like part of the story instead of the whole story. Sometimes the visuals, look, most of your transitions are dependent on the visuals. That's what you're doing. That's the way you're getting us from one point to the next. You need to be a little bit smoother about that and maybe talk about, you know, find some things. Well, maybe if you aren't interested in how glass could curve and be flexible, maybe you aren't worried about those kinds of things. Well, you would be if you had an electric car with the right kind of windshield. And let me tell you what, that electric car could have come up 100 years before we even started seeing electric cars if people had just listened. You know, you need a transition like that as opposed to just the mechanical kind of thing. Check, 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 check. So it sounds like a list of those 4 inventions. All right, and you know, Nicholas pointed out the delivery, you're kind of looking off in the direction. A lot of people have been doing this, and I know that you want to stand to the side, which is the right thing to do so that you're not right in front of the image, but the temptation is if I stand to the side, then I can look over to the side when I'm giving the speech, and you're turned away from half of the audience. Sometimes you turn away from the whole audience when you start looking at the screen, and this is where your focus ought to be. It needs to be out here. Like I said, that's something that we're going to heavily emphasize the next go-round.